You ever watch someone build a sandcastle on the beach? They spend like 2 hours on it. Moat, towers, little seashell decorations, the whole thing. And then a wave comes, and it's gone. That is basically all of human history. Except the sandcastles were empires, and the waves were usually the empire itself. See, kingdoms don't fall just because their enemies are strong. They fall because the people running them were absolutely delusional, catastrophically bad at reading a room, or, and this is my personal favorite, both at the same time. Today, you and I are ranking 7 of the most chaotic kingdoms in history, ranked by how spectacularly, beautifully, tragically fast they imploded. I'm your host. This is Drastically, and we are about to watch some civilizations die. Too much? No. Great. Before we start, the rules. We're judging on 2 things: speed and chaos level. A kingdom that slowly declined over 300 years while everyone politely looked away? D tier at best. A kingdom that collapsed in 4 years because the emperor decided to personally fight 4 different wars at the same time? That's what we're here for. We're going from D to S, sad but slow, to absolutely cooked. One more thing. You see that Jenga tower in the corner? That's us. Every kingdom we add to the list, we pull out a block. By S tier, there is no tower. Let's go. D tier, Soviet Union, 1917 to 1991. Cause of death? Forgetting the point. You and I arrive in Moscow, 1917. The workers have just overthrown the Tsar. There is blood in the streets, optimism in the air, and a man named Lenin explaining why everything is about to get very, very good. It doesn't get very, very good. What the Soviet Union does instead is spend 40 years becoming a nuclear superpower. Gulags, space program, incredible ballet, and then spend the next 30 years slowly, painfully realizing the economics don't work. By the 1980s, their government is run by a rotating cast of elderly men who each get like 18 months in office before dying. The stores are empty, the ideology has become a formality. Everyone is just going through the motions. Then Mikhail Gorbachev arrives and says, "What if we loosened things up a bit?" December 25th, 1991, Christmas Day. Gorbachev goes on television, signs some papers, gives a quiet little speech, and the Soviet Union, the largest country in history by landmass, simply ceases to exist. 74 years. D tier. Dramatic? Yes. Fast? Absolutely not. You can do better than this. Still D tier. Qing Dynasty, 1644 to 1912. Cause of death? Embarrassing final act. The Qing Dynasty ruled China for 268 years. Enormous empire, staggering wealth, completely justified confidence. The problem was their last 70 years. You and I show up in Beijing, 1839. China is genuinely one of the richest and most powerful states on earth. The emperor looks very comfortable, very settled. And then the British arrive and say, "We'd like to sell you opium." China says no. Britain says, "That wasn't a question." First Opium War begins. The Qing lose. Badly. A trading nation, primarily motivated by getting an entire civilization addicted to a drug, beats one of the most powerful empires in history, and then forces them to sign treaties handing over their ports. Historians call what followed the Century of Humiliation. It is exactly what it sounds like. Rebellion after rebellion. The Taiping Rebellion alone kills somewhere between 20 and 30 million people. Japan defeats them in 1895. Foreign troops march into Beijing in 1900. By 1912, the Qing emperor is a 6-year-old boy named Puyi. A general walks in and says, "Sign here. We're a republic now." Puyi signs. He cannot read the documents. D tier. 268 years is too slow for this list. But the last 70? Spectacular in the worst possible way. C tier, Seleucid Empire, 312 to 63 BC. Cause of death, Alexander forgot to write a will. To understand the Seleucid Empire, you first need to understand Alexander the Great. Alexander spent 13 years conquering basically everything he could reach. Egypt, Persia, Afghanistan, parts of India. He was unstoppable. Then he died at 32, in Babylon, without an heir, without a will, without any instructions whatsoever for what happens next. So his generals, these are the men who conquered the world with him, look at each other. And then look at this enormous empire sitting right there. And they divide it. Seleucus gets Persia, Mesopotamia, and a chunk of Asia Minor. He calls it the Seleucid Empire. You and I arrive at the beginning, 312 BC. It's magnificent. It stretches from the Mediterranean nearly to India. It should dominate the next several centuries. Instead, it immediately starts losing pieces. The Parthians break off. The Bactrians declare independence. The Ptolemies fight them over Syria constantly. A group called the Maccabees revolts in Judea. You may have heard of them. They got a whole holiday out of it. The Seleucids spend 200 years desperately clinging to what remains, fighting everyone, losing constantly, slowly shrinking. Rome finishes them off in 63 BC. What remains of the Seleucid Empire at that point? Roughly Syria. They went from controlling a third of the known world to one medium-sized province. C tier. 200 years is still too slow, but it was baked in from day one. B tier, Burgundian state, approximately 1363 to 1477. Cause of death, one man's ego. We are in the fast lane now, the Duchy of Burgundy. Most people know Burgundy as a wine region, and that's fine, but in the 1400s, Burgundy was the most powerful state in Western Europe, richer than France, more sophisticated than England, the cultural capital of the continent. 100 years of careful, patient, brilliant statecraft. 3 generations of dukes slowly building something genuinely impressive. And then Charles the Bold inherits it in 1467. Charles is a lot. He is aggressive. He is vain. He believes Burgundy should be a kingdom, not a duchy, not a vassal state, a kingdom. And he will fight anyone who disagrees. Which, as it turns out, is everyone. He declares war on France. He goes to war with the Swiss. He fights a coalition of German princes. He is picking military conflicts like he is collecting them. He has one problem. He keeps losing. January 5th, 1477. Charles the Bold rides into battle against a Swiss and Lorraine coalition outside Nancy. He is completely certain he will win. His body is found 2 days later on the ice, face down, half-eaten by wolves. He has no male heir. His daughter Mary is 19 years old and suddenly responsible for everything. France immediately claims the Western territories. The whole structure collapses in months. 100 years of construction, undone in one afternoon by a man who simply could not stop picking fights. Still B tier. Napoleon's Empire, 1804 to 1815. Cause of death, Russia, specifically winter in Russia. Paris. Napoleon Bonaparte crowns himself Emperor of France. He is 34 years old. He controls France, the Low Countries, Spain, large parts of Italy, and Central Europe. His armies are rewriting the rules of warfare. His legal reforms are reshaping civilization. He is, by almost any reasonable measure, the most powerful man alive. You and I are watching him put the crown on his own head, not letting the Pope do it, very deliberately putting it on himself, and thinking, there is no way this ends badly. And then he invades Russia. In the summer, sure, but the point is the winter. 600,000 men go in. About 100,000 come back. After Russia, everyone smells blood. Prussia, Austria, Britain, Russia, Sweden, they all pile on at once. Leipzig, 1813. Napoleon is defeated by 4 countries attacking simultaneously. He abdicates, gets sent to Elba, a small island off the coast of Italy, where he sits for 9 months before deciding, actually no. He escapes, marches back to Paris with a small army, reclaims the throne. The 100 Days, one of the most audacious comebacks in history. Then Waterloo, then St. Helena, an island so remote, so deliberately inaccessible, that the British specifically chose it because it was the farthest point from Europe on the entire planet. He dies there, 6 years later, 15 years from Emperor of Europe to that. B tier, fast by historical standards, not fast enough for this list. A tier, Weimar Republic, 1919 to 1933. Cause of death, democracy voted itself out of existence. The Weimar Republic. Germany has just lost World War I. The Kaiser is gone. Germany is now, technically, a democracy. A real one. Free press, elections, a constitution, the whole thing. 14 years later, it's gone. You and I show up in Berlin, 1919, and it is already a disaster. Germany owes reparations that are so punishing, economists still argue about whether they were designed to be unpayable. Hyperinflation gets so severe that people are literally using banknotes as wallpaper. Not as a metaphor, as actual wallpaper, because it costs less than wallpaper. Then the Great Depression hits. Unemployment reaches 30%. A man named Adolf Hitler has been giving very angry speeches about why it's everyone else's fault. Here is the part that I still cannot fully process. The German people vote. In free, democratic elections. They vote for Hitler. And once Hitler has enough seats in parliament, he uses those seats to pass a single law, the Enabling Act, which gives him the authority to make laws without parliament. Democracy voted for the man who ended democracy. The Weimar Republic is gone in 1933. 14 years old. A tier. This is not just fast. This is philosophically devastating in a way that still keeps political scientists awake at night. S tier. Aztec Triple Alliance. Founded 1428, conquered 1521. Cause of death? The worst Tuesday in Mexican history. And I want to be fair to the Aztecs here, because they built something genuinely extraordinary. Tenochtitlan, their capital, had somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 people in 1500. That is bigger than London at the time, bigger than any city in Europe. It had causeways, aqueducts, floating gardens, a zoo, a market that Spanish soldiers described as the most impressive thing they had ever seen. They were not primitive. They were not simple. They were one of the most sophisticated civilizations on Earth. They were also not expecting Hernán Cortés. Cortés arrives from Cuba with 500 soldiers, 16 horses, and a plan that sounds completely insane. He is going to conquer an empire of 5 to 6 million people with 500 men. Here is how he does it. Step 1. Make allies of every tribe that hates the Aztecs, and there are many. Because the Aztecs have been demanding tribute and human sacrifices from their neighbors for a century, and nobody likes that. Step 2. March to Tenochtitlan. Get invited in as guests. Take the emperor, Moctezuma II, hostage while accepting his hospitality. Step 3. When everything falls apart and you have to flee the city one terrible night, losing most of your men in the chaos, come back. Step 4. Lay siege to the city for 75 days. Smallpox does most of the work. The Aztecs have no immunity. The population collapses. Step 5. Win. Tenochtitlan falls. The Triple Alliance, which had existed since 1428, is gone. 2 years. From dominant empire of 5 million people to Spanish colonial territory. 2 years. The rankings. D tier, Soviet Union, Qing Dynasty. C tier, Seleucid Empire. B tier, Burgundian State, Napoleon's Empire. A tier, Weimar Republic. S tier, Aztec Triple Alliance. Here's the thing that gets me about every single one of these. None of them thought they were going to fall. The Soviet generals in the 1980s thought they were managing a difficult patch. They'd survived worse. The Qing court in 1900 thought they could still recover. They just needed one good decade. Charles the Bold rode into Nancy certain he would win, like he had been certain every other time. And somewhere in Tenochtitlan, watching strange ships appear on the horizon for the first time in 1519, the emperor of the Aztecs probably thought, "Weird, but we'll handle it." They always think they'll handle it. Which means, somewhere right now, something that looks completely permanent and inevitable is approximately 15 years from being a C-tier entry on a list like this. I'm not saying which one. That's above my budget. You've been very quiet this whole time, as usual. But if you want to argue about the tier list, and I know you do, I can tell, the comments are right there. If you're new here, this is what we do. History, comedy, and watching very confident people make catastrophic decisions. Subscribe if you enjoy watching things collapse. I'll see you in the next one.